Ladies and gentlemen, Trump and the Art of the Deal by Donald Trump. This is from 1987, so it's 23 years old at this point. This is the only book of his I've read. I doubt he wrote it. He probably dictated it to somebody, and I don't have too many quotes in it, but the ones that there are, I think, worth a bit of time. So let's dive right into page 33. He's talking about a friend of his. Now, the first bit of the book, the first couple chapters, I think, the first 50 pages or so, he's saying what he does at 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11:30, etc. So, here's 2:45 p.m. Quote, "A friend of mine, a highly successful and very well-known painter," he never names him, "calls to say hello and to invite me to an opening. I get a great kick out of this guy, because unlike some artists I've met, he's totally unpretentious. A few months back he invited me to come to his studio. We were standing around talking when all of a sudden he said to me, 'Do you want to see me earn $25,000 before lunch?' 'Sure,' I said, having no idea what he meant. He picked up a large open bucket of paint and splashed some on a piece of canvas stretched on the floor. Then he picked up another bucket containing a different color and splashed some of that on the canvas. He did this 4 times, and it took him perhaps 2 minutes. When he was done, he turned to me and said, 'Well, that's it. I've just earned $25,000. Let's go to lunch.' He was smiling, but he was also absolutely serious. His point was that plenty of collectors wouldn't know the difference between his 2-minute art and the paintings he really cares about. Good God. They were just interested in buying his name. I've always felt that a lot of modern art is a con, and that the most successful painters are often better salesmen and promoters than they are artists. I sometimes wonder what would happen if collectors knew what I knew about my friend's work that afternoon." What do you think collectors would do or say or feel about that? Would they say, therefore, that the art is worthless, trash? Well, you may know that there was a monkey that actually painted abstract art in the 60s, and her paintings were sold for thousands and thousands of dollars. So, continuing, he says, "The art world is so ridiculous that the revelation that he was there during the painting and the painting was just splashed on, the revelation might even make his painting more valuable!" Exclamation point. Not that my friend is about to risk finding out. Right? It's definitely not going to tell the art world his methodology or his cynical disregard for their idiocy. He's just going to get rich off of it. Now we're going to go to page 47. Just some advice on how you can be more aggressive in life. He says, "Think big. I like thinking big. I always have. To me it's very simple. If you're going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big. Most people think small because most people are afraid of success, afraid of making decisions, afraid of winning. And that gives people like me a great advantage." So, you wonder, how do people like Trump and Bill Gates and Steve Jobs get rich, filthy rich? Well, it's because nobody else wants to take the opportunities that are there and available. And so there's very little competition. Now, in that same sort of vein of thought, he talks about people, page 59, about 13 pages later, he talks about people he calls life's losers. Quote, "There are people, I categorize them as life's losers, who get their sense of accomplishment and achievement from trying to stop others. As far as I'm concerned, if they had any real ability, they wouldn't be fighting me, they'd be doing something constructive themselves." He mentions, for example, a bureaucrat who says, "No, we can't do this project." Bureaucrat says, "No, we can't do this project," and he comes back and says, "Well, I think we could if we do this and this and this." And then the bureaucrat brings up some other little silly thing, and then Trump says, "No, I think we can get around that by blah blah blah." And finally the bureaucrat says, "Mr. Trump, the answer is no, no, no." So you can see that he's just not going to bend on it. And that guy's, and he says, he probably just, Trump says, this bureaucrat probably just wants to go home and have his martini at the end of the day, and that's his life. but Trump has more things to do. That deal didn't go through, it just couldn't, but what the hell. Now page 111, something more about bureaucrats here. He was astonished to find that saving tens of millions of dollars in taxpayer money was not considered even interesting to city officials. They're arguing about building a big convention center and where it should be built and so on. He says, quote, "I announced before a ton of reporters that I could build my convention center for $110 million, or at least $150 million less than the city had estimated it would cost to build at West 44th Street. So the city is announcing a $260 million project. He says he's got a $110 million project, and it'll be the same utility. Not surprisingly, that raised some eyebrows and even got us some attention in the press, but there was scarcely an approving peep from the politicians. I discovered, for the first time but not the last, that politicians don't care too much about what things cost. It's not their money." So, tens of millions or even $100 million is not too much for politicians to waste. They don't mind. Now, this is a light, easy breezy read. I recommend it if you happen upon a copy. This was $1, used bookstore, of course. And not a bad read. Light, easy breezy, you make it through it quick. Some interesting stuff. Trump, art of the deal. I can't say very much to derogate him. Now, there was one last thing. I don't know, I didn't take note of it with a pen, so I won't try to find it, but he had bought these two buildings on 5th Avenue or something, and there's one little apartment building 10 stories high or something, and another one that sort of wrapped around it, and he was going to tear them both down and build a skyscraper. And he got one of the buildings vacated, got the people to move out and stuff, but he was only able to get about half of the tenants out of the other building. It was rent-controlled apartments, really nice big old apartments where they weren't paying very much rent, but they were very, very, very wealthy people who, these apartments go back and forth and around on the black market. So he's trying to get these people out, and he's walking to work one day, and there had been news in the papers recently about the homeless in the city, and he announces to some reporter or something, calls up a paper, and he says, "I think I might just give those extra apartments in that house to the homeless of the city." Now, you probably know as well as I that the homeless aren't just like people that have a decent job and they're decent people and they just happen to somehow have lost their home and ended up on the streets. No, most of them are homeless for a reason, like they're lazy or mentally ill or worthless or something like that. So he's going to have them moving into the other apartments. Now, he very quickly got a call from his lawyer and said, "You've got to stop this, don't go through with it, you can't, because then we won't be able to get them out, and you'll have a building occupied by a bunch of homeless people, and you won't be able to do anything legally." So he didn't go through with it. But he says in the book, with seemingly straight face, he says, "I thought it was a great idea, and everybody just bad-mouthed me for trying to drive out the tenants." Well, I think he was just trying to drive the tenants out, but whatever. Maybe they shouldn't have rent-controlled apartments and be small millionaires with a $500 a month apartment in the center of Manhattan. So, Trump, the art of the deal. Check him out. Probably, I don't know anything about his TV show, but it's probably not worth as much as the book. I wouldn't tune into the TV show if you want to learn more about him. But I don't know. Try it for yourself.